All right. Friday, November 3rd at 12:32 p.m. on the Pacific Coast. I am Joseph MoJOE McCarthy with some of my two favorite people on the planet. Wait, Steve was here too. Oh, and Kristen. So we got four. No, wait, no, that's just kidding. That's a joke. These are two of my
Are you
favorite people.
saying we're not your two favorite people on the planet?
I don't put words in my mouth, Steve-O. Just go with the flow here.
No,
Okay,
I asked. I didn't put words in your mouth. I just simply asked, and I would like an
perfect.
answer.
The answer is C, all of the above. Whenever in doubt, just go with C, all of the above.
Go with the C.
Which is how I got through most of my testing in college. Okay, so here we are, Modern Day Alchemists. This is episode number 25. We did the first dozen or so on the Fireside app, which has since fired everybody, including us, which is great. So now we're on StreamYard. We're multicasting on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and not just my channel, but on Stevo's and Kristen's as well, I think, if we're all connected. And we've already got friends here in the room. Before I get Kristen and Stevo to introduce themselves, we have Julie Howlett has already left a comment. Julie, good to see you. Julie's from overseas. She's in England. And Cecilia Grace over on the East Coast is saying hello to us as well in a very creative way. Good to see you both. These are friends of ours from the Wisdom app. So this topic, not surprisingly, has already gathered some momentum before we even went live because it's such a universal topic. It's if you're human, you can feel this on some level or another. And we're all on this journey to figure out how do we navigate this minefield and how do we actually turn it into a flower bed, right? So we can grow stuff there from within. We'll get into those comments in the topics in a second. But before we do, Stevo, I'm going to start with you. I'd like you to introduce yourself to people who have never met you before. Let people know who you are and where you're broadcasting from today.
I noticed that down in the chat, Kristen put in "hello, ladies," and I thought if I type that in, that would be completely different. That would sound creepy. Hello, ladies. I'm Steve Hays. I'm a messenger, and I'm a happypreneur. Entrepreneurs are those that find creative ways to make money, creative ways to create things. While I find creative ways to create happiness for people, I feel like our happy self is our best self. So I'm here to navigate, activate, and advocate your happy, which means to help you find it, turn it on, and then walk alongside you as you go through it. So I'm a podcaster, a motivational speaker, father, human being. The human being part's a little questionable. And I'm super delighted to be here and doing this with you guys. And we're talking about a topic today that I'm very excited about. It's a topic that I still to this day have to fight off myself. So
right on. Okay. Thank you very much, Stevo. I can't wait to hear your thoughts.
Thanks for letting me go before, Kristen, because wait till you guys hear Kristen's introduction. It just blows my mind away. So at least I got to go before it this time.
Way to make her self-conscious. Wait, Stevo, that was very
helpful. I'm like, it's nothing too dramatic, everybody. I'm just going to say that. My name is Kristen Brown, and I'm a spiritual and intuitive healer, author, and mentor. And I help people upgrade their relationships in life by resetting their energetic foundation of self-worth and reclaiming their personal power.
And I forgot to press live on the Wisdom app, so I'm trying to get us live here on Wisdom. Let's check one. This is on the Wisdom app where many of us have met. Great to have you tuning in on Wisdom. I'm not taking guests on Wisdom because I have 3 in the studio already, which is how the conversation is going to go. So I'll let you two monitor the chat while I talk for a second. I am Joseph MoJOE McCarthy. You can find me at mojo.studio. I have to make this comment disappear to show up. Okay, it's mojo.studio. That's a link tree to all of the different places that I am online, from a podcast and a blog and a merch store that's got over 1,000 products that I've designed myself, both on Printify and now on Etsy as well. And if you purchase before December 1st, 20% of the sales will go to a very worthy cause, be donated to Operation Christmas Child, which is a ministry of Samaritan's Purse. And Samaritan's Purse, through Operation Christmas Child, sends gifts to children around the world who otherwise would not get any. So that's a win-win. You'll put gifts under my family's tree as well as family trees around the world. So great to have you here. And this hour is going to go very fast. I have no doubt about it because there's so much to talk about here. And I can't think of 2 people I'd rather talk about it with. So let's just set this up. And Stevo made a great point offline before we were here that self-worth and self-confidence are 2 things that sometimes people mix up. They use them interchangeably. They think they're the same, which they're not. And so I think it's important, super important, that we start the conversation with giving each of you a chance to define, what do you feel about it? What do you think self-confidence and self-worth is? And I just want to let the audience know here, we're not telling you what to think. We're telling you what we think as an invitation to be part of this conversation, right? So everybody's perspective is valid, but I want anybody who's tuned in, both live or after the fact, to ask yourself this question as Stevo and Kristen are answering it. What do I think self-worth is? What do I think self-confidence is? Are they the same? Are they related? Right? So think about it yourself while you're listening. And let's start with Kristen here. Kristen, I know you could talk for an hour without breathing on this particular topic, and you're really, really, really brilliant on this.
There, just 7 minutes on our first podcast. Which I listened to, by the way, Kristen. It was fantastic. How do we listen to your podcast, by the way?
Oh, it's on Apple Pod. It's everywhere.
It's called Life
Google
Empowerment.
Podcast, Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud.
What's the title of it?
I'm sorry. The Sweet Empowerment Podcast.
The Sweet Empowerment Podcast. Yeah, and Steve was typing it into the comments as we speak.
Yeah, thanks, guys. So what Kristen, was the direct question, Mojo? It was, what do I think self-worth is?
Yeah, from your perspective, and you've got a quite extensive experience in this, both personally and professionally. But how would you define, to someone who's kind of trying to figure out what does this mean, how would you define self-worth and self-confidence? Are they the same? And if not, what's the difference from your perspective?
My goodness. Oh, see, I have all of this and I have to pull it in and try to figure out which piece and part to talk about.
Of course.
I believe our self-worth is the core and foundation of who we are. It is the foundation that we act on in life. So whether it's a high self-worth or a low self-worth, our life is going to reflect back to us from that foundation. Do you want me to do more?
Please.
Nope. I said no. Steve said yes. So let's
I'll share confidence.
Rochambeau. Okay, give us a little more, Kristen. Yes.
Okay, and so confidence to me, and this is just speaking from my heart because I've never sat down and defined this ever. Confidence is to me is the ability of whether I believe I can or I think I can. I can or I think I cannot. So, and a lot of times when it comes to confidence, we have so much talent and creative potential and streaming from God that we could share with the world. But because of our low self-worth, we don't believe that it has any power. So to me, confidence is whether or not we think we can or think we can't.
Very good. All right. So, Stevo, you may agree with that. You may disagree. You may have a different take on it. But what I love about
agree with that. I'm not even going to talk about the definition because I think that definition says it succinctly. I mean, I think that's perfect. Self-worth is the worth that you have. Self-confidence is the ability to believe that you can do something. And the only thing that I would want to tag on are two things, actually. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? My question was, which comes first, self-confidence or self-worth? And I think that it's a catch. I think that they snowball off of each other for sure. And I think, I don't know. When you decide I'm going to be confident that I can try something, it increases your self-worth. But when you realize that you're valuable, it also increases your confidence. But according to our conversation, our topic today, it makes me think that we can have self-worth and not have self-confidence, or maybe even vice versa. My second point that I would have on this is we don't have to do anything. So I think that's a problem we have. In America anyway, we live in a consumer-based society. So everything is based upon our performance. Even social media around the world, we judge it by how many views, how many likes, how many whatever, right? So a lot of our self-value comes from our opinion, obviously, like Kristen says in her podcast, right? Change in perception equals change in direction. That's right, Kristen? Right. But I think that the value, we don't have to do anything. I want to say to everyone listening, you are already valuable. You are already of utmost valuable, like Kristen said last week. All God's children are special. So therefore, none of God's children are special. In other words, no one's more special than anybody else. So my whole point is that all we really have to do is uncover the value that's already there. And I think what covers up that value, you already are. You don't have to do anything to prove your value. That's huge already. That's our problem. We keep trying to impress people. You are already valuable. You don't have to do anything to prove that. All you have to do is uncover the things that have, like in a hoarder's house, you can't find anything, right? Like in a mine, you can't find the gold until you uncover all the dirt. And I think a lot of our perceptions, a lot of our self-perceptions, a lot of the things that we've been taught down the road, whether subliminally or flat out in our face, tend to cover up that value that you already are, but you already are of utmost value.
So it's beautiful. As I think both of you know, about a year ago, I had this epiphany of sorts. I don't know exactly how to even define epiphany, but it was profound divine intervention of my own thought process here. And so I was in my morning prayers and meditation. I thought I was done, was ready to get up and go. And suddenly, my eyes are closed. Suddenly, across the inside of my eyelids, these words start to scroll. And I'm reading them. It's my own handwriting. And I'm like, what's this all about, right? So I start to read these words scrolling on the inside of my eyelids, and it says, "Hey, Joe, your self-worth, your intrinsic value is neither dependent on nor determined by anybody else's opinion or approval." And I was like, what? Wait, what? Play it again. I said this out loud. Play it again. And sure enough, it starts to scroll across the inside of my eyelids in my own handwriting. "Hey, Joe, your intrinsic value, your self-worth is neither dependent on nor determined by anybody else's approval or, what was the other word? Approval or
acceptance.
There's another word. I can't remember the other word all of a sudden. Doesn't matter. Approval of you. And then it said ... love God. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It said ... including your own. This was added on the second time. Including your own. Love God. And I'm seriously, I'm having a hard time breathing now. Physically, I'm like, oh, wait, what? And this actually prompted one of the first profound conversations I had with Kristen. I called Kristen and I said, we got to talk. We got to talk. I'm having a breakthrough here, right? I'm having a moment. And it's something that Kristen already understood, and I could hear her talking about it on the Wisdom app. And I'm like, I got to talk to her because she's going to get this. She's going to help me ground what just happened here, right? And I suddenly, what I should have known, that's a really harsh word. That's a judgmental word. I use that on purpose because, yeah, right. Like, so my judgment to myself is I should have known, but that's not fair to me because I could not have known that all my life I'm living for the approval of somebody else, right? And I'm thinking that my value is determined by their approval of me. And sometimes that was my parents, sometimes it was coaches, teachers, sometimes it's somebody I didn't know, didn't even like, right? So somebody who is a hater, hating on me, not because it's me. I didn't know this. I didn't know they're not hating on me. They're hating on me because that's who they are. I'm taking it personally, and I'm thinking, I got to make them like me. I got to make everybody like me. Because if I don't, something's wrong with me. False narrative. I'm living under this for years, for 40 plus years of my life. And so God finally gets my attention. And I'm sure he's been telling me this message the entire time, but finally it sinks in because I'm quiet, I'm listening, I'm open, I'm ready. And it comes in like a flood. And that has been a milestone moment in my life to understand what other people understand earlier and later in their life. And it's not a comparison or contrast. It's just how important it is. What Stephen and Kristen have both said already is that my value, my worth isn't determined by anybody's. What's that?
You're a little freezing on you, Joseph.
Okay, I'm having connection issues. All right, tell me when it's smooth again, so I won't say anything too profound until I am unfroze. Let's see. I'm going to put D. Grant's. So D. Grant says, honestly, it's great to see you all rocking this subject. It's very important and something everybody needs to embrace. Great stuff. Joe and Kristen, you too, Steve. I just don't know you as well. Thank you, D. Grant. Great to have you in the room. supporting us as we go. And D. Grant could speak at length to this as well. We've had great conversations with him about this journey. But so then that's the self-worth piece. Now what's the self-confidence? Self-confidence, as you guys have described already very well, is, do I believe that I can do what I think I can do, what others think I can do, and maybe even more, right? How much confidence do I have? And as you both know, I'm a big fan of Brendan Burchard, and he talks about the competence loop, that as your confidence grows, your competence grows, and as your competence grows, your confidence grows, and they feed upon each other. That as I get better at what I do, I get more confident at that, and the confidence feeds into my competence, and it's just an infinite loop of confidence and competence. But I would say, Stevo, with the egg and chicken question, if my self-worth is worth less, I will never believe that I can do much of anything, right? So my confidence is shot already. I think, this is my opinion, just my opinion, and this may change. Up to this point, what I understand is that my self-worth is absolutely essential. It's baseline for me to have any self-confidence, right? Because if I believe that I'm worth less, not worthless, but just worth less than I actually am, then I will not have the confidence to believe I can do much of anything, because my confidence is going to mirror how much worth and value I think I have. Now that's my opinion. I'm going to pass it over to Kristen and see where she takes it from here.
Oh my goodness, I took a bunch of notes. I don't even know where to jump in. Worthy and confident. I'm going to let Steve go because I got to get my notes together here. Because there's too much. This is too much. You guys know this is my wheelhouse, so I am being flooded with information.
Of course, yeah.
I almost want to just be quiet and let Kristen talk the entire time, honestly.
I remember what I was going to say.
You know, Joe, you're such a wordsmith. You love to play off of words and acronyms, and when you said that word worthless, we tend to think that as it's all or nothing. It's all the bottom of the rung. Worthless means I have no worth. Yeah. But if you break that word down, it means I have less worth than what I have. And I like this whole concept of, we call it self-worth, self-confidence. There's a lot of people out there that don't like self-help, right? They were created by God, by someone greater and all that stuff. But to me, the whole point of the word self in there means it's what I believe of my worth. My self-worth doesn't change my worth at all. I love what Kristen typed in her thing. See, everything I say, she knows how to say it better. I mean, this is her wheelhouse, right? It's my wheelhouse. I've struggled with it my whole life. That's why I dress up like a lime green nerd and talk on this very topic for years to teenagers, right? But when she said, she calls it taking that, what do you call it? Removing the mud from the Ferrari. I want to cry. I want to cry reading that right now. I can feel the weight of that, because you are a Ferrari, you are a Bentley. And just because someone has piled a bunch of mud or something else that resembles mud but smells a lot worse, right. like Back to the Future. Remember when he was chasing that, had that big dump truck of fertilizer that dumped in on a lot of us were in that situation. Just because listen, if someone said, you can have this Ferrari, it's dirty. Someone comes up to me and says, I got this Bentley, but it's got a bunch of horse crap in it. You can have it. I don't want it anymore. Will I take it? You better believe it. Am I going to clean that crap out of there? Yeah, you better believe it. I have no problem with that because I know the value of that Bentley. And so that's the whole point of the self here. The self-confidence. Listen, we all believe other people can do stuff. That might help them a little bit, but it isn't until we tell them, it isn't until they embrace it. You know, we can tell them you can do this, but we tell them that so that they can believe. And so the point is, I have got to see what my worth is. Joe, you can see my worth all day long. I can see Kristen's worth all day long. I can see your worth. I can see my kids' value, right? But if they don't see it, that's what affects their reality. And a change in perception leads a change in direction, as Kristen always says in her podcast. So I think that whole worth less concept, when we say we're worth less, it's simply meaning I might be just a hair below of what I'm worth. I might believe just worth less. To me, it's all the same thing. It's not just the bottom of the thing. Worthless means, wait a minute, I don't see my complete worth. And that's where that word self comes in. Self-worth, self-confidence. We do things when we're confident. We do things when we see our value. When we don't, we don't.
Oh, great point.
Beautiful.
All right, Kristen, you ready?
Yeah, I'll add to that. And I will say that there's also certain areas in our life that we feel confident and worthy, in other areas of our life we don't. So
Yes.
for, most of you know that I was a hairstylist for 30 years. And of course, when I first started that, I didn't have the confidence because I didn't have the time and the knowledge and the experience behind me yet. So I was really not super confident, but there was no part of me that said I wasn't worthy of being an amazing hairstylist and building up an amazing career. Like I didn't even question that was possible, because that was not an area that my unworthiness was affecting. Okay.
Yeah.
So when it comes to doing hair, like even when I had to raise my prices, or someone was 20 minutes late and I said, sorry, can't blow dry you, or do your haircut this time, I got people waiting, stuff like that. I didn't balk. I didn't blink. I didn't anything. But then when it came to setting and maintaining healthy boundaries in my personal life and not accepting the unacceptable, that's where my lack of value started to show up. And I did not know that, because our experiences that we're experiencing in the world are going to show us where we are lacking our values. So first, I just want people to know it's not always across the board and everything in your life, because people might be like, I'm really confident author, I'm a really confident, podcaster. It's going to show up in little areas, and it's going to show by the way things are reflected back to us, because I'm talking about our self-value right now. Because if I did not think I was a great hairdresser, if I did not think I was capable of this, I would not have built a great clientele, period. Because the energy that would have been going out would have been coming back to me. So when I was in relationships, and unconsciously, that's what's important here, because a lot of times, we were like you guys were talking about earlier, there's this embodying that needs to happen of it. Like on the superficial intellectual brain level, we can go, I'm worthy. But are you really? Like, do you have those wounds inside that have added the mud to your Ferrari? Are you really feel that way? Because if you were, your behaviors would demonstrate it, number one. And number two, your energy would reflect back something of worthy, of value. So when I sat down finally and said, why I'm having all these terrible relationship issues, when I got really honest with myself, I realized that I was the one that wasn't valuing me. And the reason why those people were not valuing me is because they were reflecting back to me my level of value. So when that came up for me, I was like, okay, hot diggity dog. I know what the problem is now, but what do I do? Like, now what? So, I did the first thing that was really important, is that I vowed to remain single and celibate. And I did that because, and I say celibate, you guys, because I used to just say single, but I really wanted it to be blatantly clear to people. It wasn't like I was out doing stuff. I mean, I was like 0 romantic partners whatsoever, not even coffee. And so when I vowed to remain, I didn't know what I was doing. But when I set course to heal this thing, what happened was, by the practices that I was applying to myself, I organically started to change on the inside. And that started to be reflected back through my behaviors, what was acceptable, not acceptable. And then I realized one day, I think I told you guys this, one day I was like, oh my gosh, what's changed? And that was my self-worth.
Yeah, really, really good here. So I'm just going to highlight what I'm pulling out of what Kristen's saying. And I've heard Kristen talk about this in many different ways, and she can talk about it from a zillion different angles. But what I love most about what Stevo and Kristen are sharing today is they're not talking about a theory, about something that they read or heard from somebody else. They're talking about their own journey. I'm talking about my own journey, right? And I think I think it's safe to say, and I hate blanket statements, but I think it's safe to say that biggest percentage of the planet, if you're a human being, you're struggling with self-confidence and self-worth. And you don't really understand. We all don't. I'm not saying you. I don't understand exactly how they're tied together and how they affect each other. And more importantly, what do I do with this self-awareness? So Kristen made this great point that now she became aware of, here's the issue, which is where it all starts. It doesn't matter what teacher you listen to about any subject. They all come down to, it starts with self-awareness. Why? Because if you're not aware of something, then you can't change it, right? So you have to become aware. And that's why I asked everybody who's listening, who tunes in, to write down your own definition of what does self-worth and self-confidence mean to you. That raises your awareness of what you're thinking about this, what you're feeling about this. But as Kristen pointed out, once we are aware of that, at least to some degree, or we've raised our awareness, I wouldn't say awareness is a destination. Awareness is a continual process. But as we raise our awareness and we become more aware of these issues and how they are affecting the way we think and how we see and how we feel and how we connect and how we relate, then it does raise the next question. What do I do with this awareness now? Because most of us don't really know what the next steps are. And one of the many things I love about Kristen's story is that she didn't go to gurus, although she did in books, right? She found some great ideas from books. But she really went within, and she says, basically, as I think is one of the most powerful prayers in entire history, is help, right? Help. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I'm at the end of my rope, as many of us get to. I can, because I grew up in the 70s, I can see the cat hanging onto the string, hanging on the poster that says, hang in there, baby. Friday's coming, right? Yep. And I feel that way so many times. It's not even Friday. I'm like, hanging in for dear life, right? But I love this. I love this on so many levels, this idea that at some point, if we're willing to put our hubris, our arrogance, our veneer, our pride, our self-sufficiency aside and just cry out for help. Now, for some, that's crying out for help to God, universe, source. Sometimes it's just crying out to help for somebody who you know loves you and wants what's best for you. But, and Kristen's made this good point before, and Steve and I can relate to this, that it makes it even more difficult as a guy who's raised with don't ever let them see you sweat, and just shake it off, and you need to be a self-made man, and on the stuff goes. Truth is, there's no such thing as a self-made man, because how did we get in the world anyway? Right? Through a woman. and the woman had to be with somebody else anyway. All that to say, there's no such thing as a self-made man. That's a concept that keeps us from being free to be vulnerable, to say, hey, I'm stuck. I'm broken. I'm lost. I don't know where to go. Help me. And I have to share this. I was at Growth Day Live with Brendan Burchard and Ed Milet and Trent Shelton and some amazing speakers talking about mindset. And the whole day, by the way, was framed on self-confidence leads to success. The whole day, every speaker, right? So this stuff is just flooding in. But they showed this video, Ed Milet showed this video of a girl, a runner, a high school runner. And she contracted MS, muscular sclerosis, at about 12. And she was a soccer player up to this point, vibrant young lady. And suddenly she gets the diagnosis of MS. She's feeling tingling and numbness in her legs. And the doctors say, MS is debilitating. It eventually kills most people. We don't know how long you have. And of course, the whole family's devastated. And so this young girl at 12 years old, she asked the doctors, can I play soccer? And they said no, because it's a contact sport, and that can really accelerate the problems. So she goes, well, can I run? Well, if they said, if you can run, then you can run. There's no danger there, right? So she changes her focus from soccer to long distance running. And the rest of this video, which will bring me to tears as I tell it, this girl who is slow, never been a long distance runner, has issues now with her legs where she can't feel it. She joins the track team, and a coach connects with her and says, why are you here? She says, I want to be a runner. And he says, okay. They do a test run. She's not very fast. He says she's mediocre at best. He thought maybe by her senior year, she might make the varsity team. But now she's got her mortality in mind. She doesn't know how long she's going to be able to run again. So she's like, coach, just teach me. So he teaches her, and she gets faster and faster. By her junior year, she's not just the fastest girl in the school, she's the fastest girl or guy in the school, and becomes almost the fastest girl in the state. And then they show this clip where she's at her last meet of her career, this end of her senior year, and she's now considered one of the elite runners. But I have to throw this in here. Because of her MS, when she runs, she feels nothing from the waist down. Her legs go completely numb within the first 100 yards, and she can't feel her legs. And she says, it's the weirdest thing, because I know my legs are moving, but I don't know how fast they're moving. I don't know where they're moving. I just keep going, right? And she says, some people criticize me and say, well, that's an unfair advantage. And she goes, really? I've got MS. I can feel everything from the waist up. And by the way, running, it's kind of important that you know where your legs are and what they're doing at all times. So I don't think this is really an advantage, right?
Right.
So critics are critics, haters will hate. But she just does this. But here's the deal with MS, because when her body heats up, everything starts to get numb and tingly within the first 100 yards. She can't feel anything from the waist down. But at the end of the race, as soon as she stops running, within 10 seconds, all of the pain that she would have felt during the run floods into her body all at the same time. And she collapses in a heap and she's crying out, help me, help me, help me. It hurts, it hurts. It just crushes you to see this. And the coach picks her up, scoops her up off the ground because she collapses into the ground, and he carries her off and they give her water. And she's like, I'm going to die. I need water. I need water. And the interview is asking this girl, why do you do that? Why would you go through all of that just for the pain at the end, right? What's that? She says, I don't do it for the pain. I do it because I can. And I don't know how long I can do this again, right? I don't know how long this is going to last. And then you see this relationship between the coach and the runner. And the coach is cheering her on from the sidelines and just believing the best. And he's always the first person at the end of the race to catch her and to scoop her up. So fast forward to this last race of her career. The big pack, they all start out together in the long distance race as normal. She's in the middle of the pack and suddenly she loses her footing. She gets tripped up or something. And you see this on the camera. She falls and the rest of the pack goes on ahead. Now, she's got MS, and she can't feel her legs, so she has to get up on her own. The coach can't come on the track to help her. And the coach is screaming from the stands, get up, you can do this, get up. Just believe in her, right? And she says, there was this moment where it's like, this is how it's going to end, really? This is the end of my career. Isn't that just typical, right? Isn't that just the way? Kind of the why me thing. And then the voices kicked in. She could hear her coach yelling in the stands, get up. She's like, oh, what the heck? So she struggles back to her feet, and she starts running again. Pretty soon she's in the pack, right? In the middle of this long distance race. She's back in the middle of the pack. You get to the last turn, she kicks into high gear and she separates from the pack. So now she's in the front and there's one runner right behind her, and she's kind of short and skinny. And there's this tall runner, almost on the screen, it looks like she's twice as tall with these big long strides, right? Coming behind her. And you could hear, she says, I know this girl's behind me and she's awesome. And she says, I'm not gonna get second. She's like fast as I can. Her legs are going twice as fast as the girl behind her, right? And she crosses the finish line first, right ahead of the other girl. And then she collapses. Help me. And you think she's gonna die. You can feel the excruciating pain pouring through her body, and her coach catches her and they give her the water that she needs. And Ed Milet, he says, you'll never see a better metaphor for life right here, right? He says, listen to this relationship between the girl and herself and her coach. She's like, I don't know how long I can do this, but I'm going to do the best I can with what I've got. And then she gets to the end of the race and she says, help me every time. And the coach is right there to help her. And then she says, I love my coach. I trust him with my life, right? And Dad's saying, we can all get so good at stuff that we're confident and we think we don't need anybody. He says, but there's somebody in your life, perhaps many somebodies, that were the coach for you when you needed it, when you needed help, that stepped in and said, what can I do? I believe in you. Let's get up. Let's do what we can do with what you've got. And Kristen's talked about the books of people that she looked into that helped her, and her intuition and her connection with spirit. And so I'm going to pass this off to Steve. And Steve, I want to hear both your reaction to this story, but how this relates to your own life, your own journey.
Well, part of the story that maybe we don't get is that coach's, what about that coach's confidence? If that coach wasn't confident, if that coach didn't see his value as a coach or her value as a coach, he couldn't help that runner, which is why it's important that we see our value, because we're here to help people in their walk, in their life. But when I'm insecure, we don't like egotistical people. We don't like overconfident or cocky people, we call them. We don't like them. Why? Because all they think about is themselves. Well, when it hit me that when I'm insecure, you know who I think about? Myself. At least an overconfident person will try something, will do something, will go out there. An insecure person will never try to do anything. So my first thought on that is the coach's confidence to help. I mean, I'm not confident as a coach. I'm not good at that. So I would see the runner fall down and I would say, oh man, that was too bad. I wouldn't be yelling at her to get up. That coach knows better. That coach is a coach. That coach knows what they're doing. So they know to challenge that person and tell them, because they're good at what they do, which takes me back to the worthless comment, which is, when we are worth less than we believe we're worth less than what we actually are, that's still worthless, right? But Einstein had a quote that said, everybody is a genius. Just like I said earlier, everyone has a value. Einstein said, everybody is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll live its whole life believing it's stupid.
You got to read that again, Steve. So good. Read it again, please.
Everybody is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid. And going back to something that Kristen said right before that, when I wrote down that note, just because we're not good at something doesn't mean we're worth less. It doesn't mean that we have less worth because we're not good at that. Let somebody else be good at that. You be who you are. You be you. And the last thing I want to represent in this whole thing is that, I mean, I've struggled with being a nerd my whole life. I struggle with, I don't fit in. I'm a kind of I think it's now I'm in front of the curve. I see things before I just don't fit in. I'm one of these people that people look at me and go, scratch their head like, what in the world? But they love to have me around. Right. But when I'm off the stage, when the microphone isn't in my hand, I've always struggled with this whole self-value because I've based it upon how people viewed me, not on how I viewed myself, going back to your very first story that you shared, Joe. And I don't want to really get into that whole thing, but what I want to say is this: what helped me get through that was the coaches, like you said, I had in my life that were confident. And Joe, you are that coach to me. You're one of those friends to me. We've known each other for for 3 decades now. And you've always been a person to speak life into me. And when we reconnected the last year or so, I started calling you. When I come down in your area, I make sure that I visit you. You know why? Because you speak life into me. When I hang out with you, I feel like, a better person. The truth is, we all need help. When she's yelling help, she needs it at the end of that race. And like the coach said, it's a perfect analogy for living life. We all need help. None of us are an island unto ourselves. We all need help from somebody, somewhere, sometime. Getting help isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of intelligence. It's a sign of strength, in my opinion. And so we all need people like Joe, like Kristen, like myself, like you who are listening right now. Everybody needs somebody, right? You're needed by someone. We all need help. And so I would say this: if you need help, then you have to be help, because you harvest what you plant. You reap what you sow. And so if you need encouraging people in your life, it's hard to just go out and find encouraging people, right? But if you start developing that principle of you harvest what you plant, if you start planting encouragement in other people, it will come back on you. Some people call that the yin and the yang, and they call that synergy. They call it, right, karma, whatever. But truth is, we need help. So we need to be help to get help, right? So instead of focusing on people that you need in your life to speak into you to help you become a better runner, to help you become a better person, you can't change that. That's out of your control. But you can change how you respond to other people. So become that coach by encouraging people, by finding how they, well, there's somebody think like talk. Just anyway, be that person that you need. That person.
Good, awesome.
Got me a little riled up there.
I love it. Passion is great. I can't get this right.
So much passion. Yeah, so much passion.
Passion is great. I will listen to passionate people all day long.
Yeah, me too.
Just kudos to both of you for what you said. Cecilia, if you're still here, I'm kudoing. I was just sitting here thinking, because again, I could go 20 different directions and we could just be going off for 4 hours. But I was thinking kind of to myself, I was like, where does confidence really come from? Like, where does it come from? And I feel like it comes from 3 places. And the first place is what y'all were talking about, which is owning your value and owning your genius. And I say the same thing. I said this without knowing Einstein said it. I'm just going to say that everybody has their genius. Everybody has their genius, period. And like, again, we were talking about last time, we cannot compare apples to oranges. We can't do that. However, part of our confidence comes from really owning what is ours. There's nothing arrogant about recognizing within yourself what you're good at.
Right.
Yes.
What I first
heard, Kristen, say that again. We need to hear that again.
There's nothing arrogant about recognizing and owning what you're good at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of time as people pleasers, we're so afraid of being something that someone's not going to like. We don't want to own our stuff. There was a point in my hair career where people would come in and you wouldn't think so, but they're so nervous about a change. And I would put my hand on their shoulders while they were talking. And I would just sit there and listening to them. And I'd play with their hair. Okay. Calming them down. And then at one point I'd walk around to the front of them and I would touch their hand and I would say, I'm really, really good at what I do. I will make no step that you are not comfortable with. And it was in that confidence that those people were like, okay, because they were scared of whatever thing that was going to come. So we have to own our value. We absolutely have to own our value. We have to own what we're good at. And if you pay attention in your life, you're going to see what you're good at, because everybody's good at something and we're not all good at the same thing. Farmers, like you were talking about your dad farming, like he was a genius farmer, right? I'm terrible at farming. If I compared myself to your dad, that would be horrible. You know, even if we're trying to compare ourselves to other people in our same arena, we're still different geniuses. You know, there's been people that are well known that people have compared me to, and I watch those people and I'm like, I get what they're saying kind of, but we're so different, you know? So number one is owning your value. That's how you get your confidence. You just know I'm damn good baker. I'm darn good with kids. I write well. You know what I mean? So owning your thing is the first thing. The second thing is allowing yourself to embody what other people are seeing of you. I remember in my 20s, I had such low self-worth. I had such low self-esteem. And I remember no one told me to do this. Again, a lot of my journey has been me and God. That's it. And I remember one day going, oh, you're this, you're that, and just attacking myself physically, which is a very common thing for women because of society and what's expected of us and all these things. And then I said, yeah, but Brenda liked your shoes today. Now, this might sound like the smallest thing in the world that I'm noticing someone liking my shoes. That makes me want to cry now for that 20-year-old, because I had to own that somebody liked something that I was wearing. It was that minute for me. And I was like, okay. And then I would say, you know, I'd be beating myself about something and I bring something else in and I would say, but so-and-so said you're really funny. And I was like, okay. And so-and-so said, you're really great at blank. So what I was doing is I was stopping the narrative from this ultra negative, you suck, to, and this, and this. And I started to change my perception. So allowing ourselves to embody what other people think about us, even like I'm saying, it's shoes, because it was that minute in my 20s. But later it was like, so-and-so really loves talking to me. People move, you know, people complimented what I said, or they understood, or they validated me, or I made them feel better. You know, whatever it is, the compliments that are coming our way, it's really important to not just let that shit bounce off of you like Teflon. You got to sit in that and think, my words mattered to somebody.
Yeah, they do.
My this mattered, my that mattered, you know, whatever it is. So we can get some of our confidence from the outside world. So first is owning your own value. Second is absorbing and believing what's coming at you from the outside world. And the third one is experience. The more that you have the courage to do, because it takes courage to try new things, the more that we are courageous enough to try things, we're going to start feeling more confident, because the more we do it, the better we get at it. The better, like I talked about on my podcast last episode, that first one was 7 minutes. I was freaking out, right? Pretty soon later, here we are, how many years later, I'm doing 2-hour live YouTube things because I just got better at it. I got more confident at it. And the thing is that unworthy, or something, let me think how I'm going to word this. Self-worth, or our unworthiness, it's kind of forever in flux. Because at one point we might be feeling pretty good on top of our game, but then, interesting, we want to try something new. And guess what that does? That starts peeling away a whole nother onion over here, whole other layers of stuff that is starting to be brought to light now. So for me, it is, yes, I'm very confident parent, period. I know my value as a parent, the end. I know my value as a partner, the end. And then I started speaking in public, and I was like, wait a minute, you know, do I have value? This and that. So I wanted to do it, and I just kept practicing it. And there's one last thing that I want to tell you guys that I told Doug when we were first together. I said, this is 11 years or so ago. I said to him, there's going to be things that I'm really good at, and there's going to be things that you're really good at. Yeah. Let's hold each other up in the areas that they shine.
Yes.
Because together we're going to make a really good team. But if I'm trying to be who he is, and because at times he's said to me, I'm not good at this like you are. And I said, you're not supposed to be. This is how I'm designed. And I'm not good at that like you are because I'm not supposed to be. So, the comparison trap is going to screw you every time. Don't compare yourself to anybody. And if you need,
it's a monster.
It's a monster. And if you need something from someone else, understand that if you are giving a person an opportunity to shine when you need help. You're giving God an opportunity to shine. She was giving her coach an opportunity to shine, So when I say, hey, I need someone to bake a cake for me because you're a really good baker, I'm not going to go, well, you suck, Kristen, because you don't bake. I'm giving this person an opportunity to shine and be in their genius.
Yeah. That's beautiful. It's beautiful. Saw that on display on the Growth Day live stage on Wednesday, where Brendon Burchard, he proudly announces that I have Ed Mylett here, and Ed Mylett has just been named the #1 mindset coach in the world. That's Brendon Burchard's sweet spot. That's his profession. In fact, he coached the people that coach Ed Mylett, but he didn't say to himself or to anybody, well, I got ranked #2 and Ed got ranked #1. So I'm not going to invite Ed on the stage because he's going to one up me. And the interplay between these two guys was absolutely brilliant because what they were saying and modeling is someone else can be really good at something that I do. In fact, they can be better than me. That doesn't diminish who I am.
Nope.
Right? I can applaud the genius of someone who does exactly what I do, and that doesn't make me less than or less valuable. And they're modeling this. And Ed Mylett's saying, hey, by the way, I didn't get here on my own. And he tells this great story of running across Wayne Dyer on the beach. He's like, whoa, that's Wayne Dyer. That's the guy I adore. And he kind of backpedals, and he's a nobody at this point. He says, Mr. Dyer, you've changed my life. And Mr. Dyer says, well, I highly doubt that. He says, I think you've changed your life. I just said something that helped you do that. And then they sat down for night. Ed says, Dr. Dyer sits down on the sand with Ed for 90 minutes and just pours into his life. And Ed's like, who am I? Why is he doing this? And Dr. Dyer says, somebody did this for me. I got to do it for others who like you have this spark in you. And then Ed says, so if you see me talking to some quote unquote nobody for 90 minutes, it's not because I'm all that. It's because somebody did that for me and I need to do it for somebody else. And the point goes on and on and on, how my greatness doesn't diminish anybody else's greatness and their greatness doesn't diminish mine. They are not intertwined. And I was so freed by hearing them not just say this, but to model it right in front of us. It was absolutely brilliant. And I can't say enough about that. So I wanted to bring the point back to this coach of the runner. So the lady, the mom and the girl both said the same words. They said, this coach, who's a no name, it's not some famous coach, it's just a high school coach, right? This coach knew exactly how far to push me, but not too far, right? So the coach, because he's tuned in to this runner, he knows exactly what's going on in her body. She's explained it very, very clearly. So he knew whether or not she could get up on that last race and to get back in the race. So she said, my coach will push me beyond where I think I can go, but not so far that it kills me, right? And I think that's just that brilliant interchange between who we don't necessarily fully understand what we're capable of. But as Kristen said, there are others around us who know us and love us and want the best for us, and whose ego isn't tied in of whether they're better or worse than us, who will push us, right? And that's why I go back to the scripture a lot, that faithful are the wounds of a friend. Steve alluded to earlier that we had this conversation not long ago between the two of us where there's a misunderstanding and we had to say some things that weren't comfortable. And this whole idea comes to mind that the people who love you the best aren't the ones that always tell you what you want to hear. Right? Wow. They're not the ones that are blowing the smoke up your rear end all the time. Right. Yes, they do see what's best in you. They see what's capable, but they're going to push you beyond your own limits, your own perceived limits, to say, hey, I see something in you that you don't even see in you. And Howard Falco makes this point all the time, that our eyes are faced outwards, so we can't see inside of ourselves very well. But others who are looking at our self-worth, not at our flaws, or maybe they see it all, but they say, all of what's made up, all of what makes you up is extraordinary. It's extraordinarily you. It's not extraordinary compared to everybody else. It's extraordinarily you. And so you can do this. I believe you can. And all of the coaches on Wednesday were saying the people you surround you with are like thermostats, and they're going to bring you higher or lower, right? If you're with them long enough, you're going to adjust to the thermostats around you. So surround yourself with people whose thermostats are in a better place. All right. Somebody jump in here. Doesn't matter who.
I just want to say that for those of you that are watching, I just want to value you for a second and say, I get it. We're all struggle with. We all, like Kristen said it so great. She said self-worth is forever in flex. And it's something that we all struggle with. And I think it keeps us humble. I think it keeps us realizing who we are and how we need help. And that isn't a negative thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I've also been known to call. Sorry, I was going to Google a quote for you and I lost your guys' faces. Where are you? There you go. Hi, I'm back. I probably didn't leave. I call in my book, I mention this, I make reference to this, that unworthiness is the plague on the planet. It is the plague on the planet. Okay. Mm-hmm. So there's no one that you're going to meet who does not have that. Now, when I say healthy self-worth and value, I am not talking about arrogance. I'm not talking about I am better than you. Okay. I'm talking about true, healthy self-worth. Okay. It's unworthiness is the plague on the planet because this is part of the spiritual journey. If we didn't have that within us to challenge us, then we really wouldn't be learning anything here. And it comes based on the messages that when we come here, we're whole and perfect. We know nothing other than our divinity. As we start, our brainwave starts to increase. We start to take in messages from the outside world that tells us that we're not enough, we're bad, we're too much, we're this, we're that, all these things. And then that starts to chip away at our self-worth, or we can say puts the mud on the Ferrari. So, but the true value is always there. The true value is always there. It is quite literally just our programming. Yeah. It's our programming that we picked up along the way that said, you're not good at that. You're not good at this. Shh, 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 quiet. Whatever. It's all the things, whatever the things that were said to us. Then we took it to the bank. We decided that there's something wrong with us. And then we started to adjust ourselves to try to fit in with the outside world. So we moved away from our authentic self and we became this little fractured version of ourselves. We're this little teeny tiny version of ourselves. So the spiritual journey to me is returning back to that authentic version of yourself, that whole divine version of yourself. And to me, that is removing the mud from the Ferrari. And that's something that I tell people all the time when I'm coaching with them. They're like, oh, I'm broken. I'm this. I'm like, no, you're not. I said, you're freaking Ferrari. You guys know that I cuss. You are a freaking Ferrari. And we're just going to clean the mud off of you. Yeah. So at first it's taking the mud off. Then it's squirting it down. Then it's taking, the vacuum. It's just this unfolding. But the most important thing, in my opinion, is to understand that you're no different than anybody else. Yep. You think you suck. So does everybody else. Some way, some shape or form. They think there's something wrong with them. Yep. So we're all on a level playing field. As Steve was saying earlier, we're all, equal units. We are all seen the exact same in the eyes of God. No one's better or less than anybody else. And just because you struggle in a few areas does not mean that you are alone and isolated. This is a planetary thing. This is a human thing. Yes, and it's what we are. It shows
we're human. It shows we're frail. It shows we're alive. It shows we're, that we're in this thing, general. And I like what you said about how, so because of all this, we try to become somebody else and we try to blend in with the crowd. Well, we try to blend in when we're made to stand out. General Patton said that if everyone is thinking alike, someone isn't thinking. Well, I say if everyone is acting alike, then someone is acting, right? Yeah. And I want to read this quote, this poem, a very popular poem. We've probably all heard it many times, but I feel like it fits in so well right here. You can't try to be like somebody else. You were made to be you. You were made to stand out, not to blend in, right? So then that doesn't come from anybody else putting you on a platform. That comes from you putting yourself on the platform that I am valuable. I have confidence. I can do this, and what I can't do, I'll get help, and I'll get help from somebody else, but I'm at least going to try. This poem is called Our Greatest Fear by Marianne Williamson.
That's what I was going to look. That's what I was looking up.
Crazy.
That's Kristen's favorites. Yeah. Meant to be. Awesome.
Well, there's something leading this whole conversation, right?
Read it, baby.
100%. 100%.
Our greatest fear, it is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You're a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, and I'll add from our own insecurity, from our own lack of self-worth, from our own lack of self-confidence, as we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. It automatically increases others' value, others' worth, others' confidence.
Amen. I want to add this to that. That was what I was trying to search for, what I was Googling. That's actually from A Return to Love, which is one of my most prized and valued books that I have read is that. And many times people were saying, oh, that's Nelson Mandela. I'm like, no, it ain't. That is Marianne Williamson. It is in that book. You know, I used to be called weird when I was in 6th grade, and, you know, you're weird. So many people told me I was weird. And of course, Steve, I thought it was. I'm sure Steve got the same thing. I mean, so my daughter came home from school. She's almost 18 now, but when she was in like around 6th grade or so, she's like, Mom, people are calling me weird. And I was like, thank God. And she goes, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, that just means you're not blending in with everybody. I'm like, you were made to stand out, sister. Oh my God, that's the best compliment you could ever get. And she sat there in the car like, what? And I'm like, no, you don't want to be like everybody else. You want to be you. And there's one last thing I'm going to say, because I know we're coming up at the top of the hour, is that going back to the thing about owning your strengths, there's something that great leaders know, and they know what they're good at. They know what they're good at. They own what they're good at. They're not arrogant about what they're good at. In fact, they're still very humble about what they're good at, because great leaders will still take guidance and counsel and ask questions and get opinions from other people as well. Right. So we're, you know, the other thing is too, is that I believe we're here to follow and to lead. That's the other thing. Like, I don't think like you're the leader and you're done. You know, I believe we kind of do this little hopscotchy thing. And
but all we ever talk about though is leadership. We have leadership conferences. Everything's leadership, leadership, leadership. We don't have any fellowship conferences. And I think that that's why we don't think about following. I think it's time. Maybe we need to start that here, but we should start a fellowship conference, because you can't be a good leader unless you're a good follower. But everyone wants to be the guy in front, but except for the guys in front, they're content to be the guys in the back because they know what leadership. I'm sorry, I just totally cut you off, but agreed. We have to have leaders and followers. I'm paused. Sorry.
Steve's heart is this big today. This is Steve's heart today. It is like overflowing. It's so big. But you know what? If you look at someone who is a great leader, such as Ed Milet, right? Gazillion followers, he still is extremely humble. He still does his following, right? He still does his following. And I believe that that's key here, is that when you know that you're great at something, but you're still learning in other areas and making all of it okay, it's all okay.
Yeah.
That's what really matters. It's not one or the other. You don't have to be, I'm so humble and I just don't know anything and let me be passive. And we don't have to be, I know it all. I know it all.
Right.
It's in the giving and the taking. Know what you know and don't know what you don't know.
Right. Yeah. And embrace it. Yeah. Embrace the things you don't know as well as the things that you do know. There's nothing wrong with that. Embracing your weaknesses is healthy for your self-confidence and your self-awareness, I think.
Yep. We are coming right up on an hour. We're going to go a little bit over because I want to give people a practical step what to do with this. But before we do, I'm just going to read the last half of one of my blog posts that's called I Double Dog Dare You. You guys are both familiar with this. I won't read the first half, but it talks about a lot of quote unquote eccentric dreamers who were mocked because of their ideas, which in the end turned out to be right. It turned out to be proven right. Some of them were actually killed for their eccentric ideas. But I wrote this. Why do most of us try so hard to be quote unquote normal, which doesn't really even exist? Be true to your own weird self, WYRD. The word weird is a Norse word which originally just meant fate or to become. I love that word. The good book even describes believers, those who have faith in something and someone they cannot even prove exists, this way: strangers and aliens, not of this world, peculiar people. Scripture also says that God himself uses foolish things to confound the wise. That sounds pretty weird to me, so count me in, right? And there's more to that blog, and you can find that on my connections. But so with the last few minutes that we have, I do want Steve and Kristen and I both to give one small, simple step in the right direction for people who are like, this is me, I'm struggling with it. By the way, we all are, whether or not you admit it or not. Maybe this will open up the door for you to say your self-awareness is increased just enough to say, okay, I want to address my lack of self-worth, my worthlessness. Not worthless like you're worth nothing, but you feel like you're worth less than you actually are, right? The worth less. How do we become worth more? Worth more isn't a word because you're worth infinite enough. I just thought of this in this moment. There's no word that's worth more. There's worth less. There's no worth more. Why? Because you are worth an infinite value. You can't add anything to infinity. That's pretty cool right there. But anyway, for those who are tuning in, you're like, give me something, right? What can I do to help increase my understanding of how valuable I really am, which will increase my confidence as well? So either one of you, I don't have a agenda.
I'll jump in. You guys know that I am the self-love junkie on Instagram.
Right.
Why? Because it is through self-love that we organically heal our self-worth. But self-love has 5 tenets, and here's what they are. They are forgiveness and grace of self. They're respect and protection of self. They are compassion and acceptance.
Slow down.
We got to put these in there.
Well, I'm going to go through them slow too.
Okay.
They're for compassion and acceptance of self. They're loving and supportive self-talk, and it's self-care. So these are the things that, because we have this wiring by applying self-love, which love is the highest energy and essence of the entire universe. It is the highest essence that you can add to something. And love is the answer, and love heals all. So when you take these wounded spaces inside of yourself and you give yourself grace and forgiveness to each and everything that you do all day, every day, because this is not a part-time thing. This is like, you have to be dedicated to it. First of all, you're going to heal aspects of yourself that you didn't even know were wounded. You didn't even know were there because they're hidden and they're unconscious. And that is organically because that's moving mud. It's moving mud from the Ferrari, and the self-worth will start to be able to rise up, because all that self-condemnation and judgment and all these things, that's the mud. So when you organically start to move that off through grace and forgiveness, I'll jump to compassion and acceptance. You know, we're going to make mistakes. We're fallible. That's how we're designed. And it's perfectly fine. As soon as I own the fact that I'm fallible and I make mistakes, that changed my life. But here's what you guys are seeing is that I owned it. I said, oh, that is a truth bomb that I can't get away from. I feel the truth of that. And so I opened my heart to that truth, and I stopped judging myself for mistakes. I laugh at them now. I'm like, look at that, right? Rather than judging it. And then the last thing I'll say is loving and supportive self-talk. If we were mindful to the ways that we spoke to ourselves, we would be disgusted. So, and it is on autopilot. It is coming from the ego. It is coming from that part of the brain that wants to protect us. So it's going to be on repeat, trying to scan the world and keep us small. However, we got to be very mindful. And when I hear myself say something like, you're fat, or you're this, or you're old, I'm like, oh no. I won't let myself say that to myself, because that's throwing mud on my Ferrari. So if I say, no, you're beautiful, and go on and whatever, that removes the mud from our Ferrari. So the last thing I'll say, it's important that people understand the worthiness is there. It's already there. It's never changed. We came here with it. It got covered up with a bunch of crap. And now when you apply the concepts of self-love to it, you will start to remove it organically.
Before I pass this off to Steve, I want to point out, I don't know if you can see this because of my green screen, but this water bottle is a Planters peanuts jar. I've eaten all the peanuts, obviously, and I filled it with water. It's pure water. It's good. Tasty. I don't taste any peanuts. But I'm like, I didn't do this on purpose. I drink out of this jar every day. And I was coming into this conversation, and it dawns on me that, one, people could think I'm weird because I drink water out of a peanuts jar. I don't care.
You are weird, but not because of the peanut jar.
Right. But two, and this came up in a comment from Kelly earlier, that someone commented on her looking like she was fat or overweight or something like that, and how it deflated her self-confidence, and she had to work through that. So what this jar was telling me as I'm coming over and setting up for this talk today is that I often judge myself based on the jar when my value, my self-worth is the water.
The water. So good.
Right? If I put the water in a plate, it goes flat. If I put it in a tall, skinny tube, it goes tall and skinny. Whatever shape I put the water in, the water will take that shape, but it doesn't change the content. It doesn't change the water itself. The water gives me life. I need water to live. I'm not the container. You can insult my face. You can insult my body. You can insult anything on the exterior of me. You're just talking about the peanuts jar, which I could throw away at any time, but I need the water to live. I can put the water in any container. It'll take the shape. But the value that I am, the value of who you are, doesn't change because the shape of the container changes, right? The water takes the shape of the container, but it doesn't change what that is, the value of that. And so I just want to use that as an illustration that people can say what they will. I say this all the time. Haters are going to hate, bless and release. That's more about them than it's about you, right? So don't let the people or yourself judge your value based on the container. Judge it by the contents, right? Yes, please jump in.
I would just want to jump in real quick and say one more thing, because I coach a lot of women in the dating arena, and I'm going to tell everybody this. Who says that having some weight on your body is a negative thing?
Yeah.
Seriously. And I'm going to say that I've said it a million times, because
that airbrush the bodies on the magazine covers. Those people.
I will tell you, because you guys know me. I've got the thousands of male friends. I've researched, I have interviewed men, and they're half might like this body, and there's a whole nother half that likes this body. Okay. So some guys like stick skinny, and some guys like women with some weight on their body. So who says that that's the bad thing? That's a self-imposed judgment that you're supposed to look a certain way because somebody says something. So that's where I say when we learn to love and accept and give ourselves compassion for exactly who we are, guess what happens? We will have people that are going to reflect that back to us. And they're going to think exactly how we are is just beautiful, because we think exactly who we are is just beautiful.
Right. Right. And we have a whole society today that is looking at the jar. And it's up to us to fall for that or not fall for that. Just because someone else says a peanut jar is not acceptable and someone else says this is, that's up to us whether we decide to believe that or not. But we live in a culture today, and that's why there's so much insecurity, problems with self-worth and self-value, is because we are judging the bottle and not judging the contents. I know I don't it's Friday night, I'm getting pizza. It's Friday night, I can't wait. But I'm not going to get home and throw the pizza in the garbage and start eating the box. The box is only there to get the pizza into my body. That's all the box is good for, right? Our body is simply there to get us to where we need to go. It's not about the vessel. Now, we want to stay in shape. We want to stay all that stuff. And I want to close it with this for my portion anyway. It's just really simple. It's okay not to be okay, as long as we're not okay with staying there, right? It's okay. We say that a lot. I mean, there's a lot of songs about that. There's a lot of statements about that. It's okay not to be okay. But to just say, okay, well, I'm just going to be broken the rest of my life. I'm going to be like Kristen said last week. She doesn't like the term broken. She likes the term wounded. And Kristen, I've been using that all week long. I've used that in so many situations. It's not about being broken. It's about being wounded, right? But to say it's okay not to be okay means I can just be wounded the rest of my life. Well, that's not okay, right? Like the quote that says, God loves you just the way you are, but he loves you enough to not let you stay there, right? We need to take that. We're talking about self-value today, self-worth, self-confidence. So this is on us. It's okay not to be okay, as long as we're not okay with staying there. We want to become better. We want to become more confident. We want to become more valuable to ourselves. We already are valuable, but we want to, does that make sense? So that's all I got to say. Fantastic talk today, guys. I'm so glad I got to be a part of this thing.
Yep. And as I said at the very beginning of this, this is just scratching the surface.
Right.
But it's important that we do, right? Because that's where self-awareness begins. You scratch the surface and find out what's just below the surface what's really going on. The other thing I heard about containers, which I think is really good, that you're never quite sure what's inside of a container, especially if it's not clear, until it gets jostled. And then something spills out. Then you know what's inside. It's toxic acid, or it's water, or it's whatever it is. And quite honestly, if we're going to talk about the vessel, the body, the Bible calls us jars of clay, right? We're in the potter's hands, and he's always forming something beautiful, but it's a process. And we do know without a doubt that our bodies are going to decay. Eventually, our bodies are going to fail us, but our spirit, which is eternal, doesn't decay, right? In fact, it grows day by day. It desires to grow, to expand. That's inside of us. So criticize the peanut jar all you want. The peanut jar is going to end up in the landfill, but my heart, my spirit is lasting forever, right? So that's just a freedom from the judgments that we allow others to put on us. And by the way, this is really important that everybody grasp this as best you can. When somebody criticizes you, especially the external you, that's more about them than it is about you.
Right.
And you have the opportunity to say, yeah, you're right, I suck. Or you can say, that's your opinion, right? I know better. And Kristen models this for me all the time. She's like, yeah, people criticize me. And I'm like, that's all about them. It doesn't bother me anymore. It's not that it never bothered her. It's that it doesn't bother her anymore. Go ahead, Kristen.
It's not 100%. Let's see. There's always a little snap.
Right.
But it's just, it's just
whether you're going to allow that to sink in or not. Right.
Yeah. It's just like, ooh, yuck. And then I just kind of, whatever. Because I've trained my brain to think that way, though.
Yeah.
I've trained my brain not to be attached.
Right. And so one of us can train our brains. That's the point of this talk. We all have to train our brains because our value is worth it.
Yeah, that's the journey that we're on. So let me just say in summary, two things. One is the highest paid speakers in our country who talk about self-worth and value all said they struggle with this to this day. Wow. Still, Ed Milet, Brendan Burchard, Trent Shelton, on and on the story goes. They all came up and said very vulnerably, this is my journey too. I struggle with this all the time. You might think I've got it all together and that's why I'm on stage. No, not at all. Trent Shelton start naming his kids. No. He says, I've made breakfast for my kids, and my first kid said it was delicious, and my second kid said it was delicious, and my wife said it was delicious, and I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty good. And my little kid says, icky, Dad, icky, 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 icky. And he says, I went from the best cook to the worst cook in a second. He says, we're all vulnerable, right, to the external arrows that are coming all the way. And that's why I love this idea of a shield of faith. This comes out of the book of Ephesians. I'll close with this, that there's this idea of a shield of faith, but the shield isn't like a little round circle like Captain America. The shield they're talking about is head to toe. It's as tall as you are, and you don't fight with it. You hide behind it. And when the arrows are coming, the barbs, the fiery darts of the wicked, which is Bible language, you don't try to catch them. You don't try to avoid them. You put up your shield, and the darts land in the shield, and it puts the fire out. And yes, the arrows are still stuck in the shield, but they're not stuck in me, right? And the shield is called faith. Either I believe that I am worthy,
right?
That I'm worth, I'm full of worth, that I'm a child created by God and he doesn't make mistakes, or I don't. And if I don't, the shield's gone. And so all the barbs and the darts and the arrows, they hit me in my heart and my head, and it hurts. It hurts like hell, right? But if I can hold that shield in place, and sometimes I need someone to help me hold it, to say, I believe that I'm worth more than this, that I am a beautiful creation of an almighty God who doesn't make mistakes. If I believe that, I'm holding up the shield of faith that's going to quench all the darts that are being fired at me all the time.
And faith is simply believing something that you can't see. And that's self-value, that's self-confidence. We can't see it, but we choose to believe it. And then all those things that come at us, they don't affect us anymore. We're just ducking. That shield also curved around, called a bulwark. It would actually curve around you. All we have to do is just duck behind. Wait a minute. I am valuable. I can do this.
Yeah. Woo. Okay. So good.
Boom.
May or may not continue on this topic. We'll be back together next Friday at 12:30 Pacific, God willing. I just want to say thank you, first of all, to my co-hosts, Kristen Brown and Stevo Hays, for making me better, right? For raising the thermostat in my life so that I am raised up to a place that I didn't think I could get. You guys do that to me. I just want to say thank you. I want to say how much I appreciate everybody who's tuned in for even a portion of this talk. It is our, the three of us, it is our express intent to have a good time, and we're certainly not in here to get attention. We're not getting paid for this. We're here to share what we're learning with you so that it will be of value to you. And if it is of value to you, make a comment, like, share, do something, so that, because that's the only pay we're getting from this. And I'm not saying we're doing it for that. I'm just saying that helps spread the message, right? When you like and you comment and you share, more people will see it, more people will hear it.
And that's what I mean, because so many people are sharing all the ugly stuff, all the stuff that's creating a problem with self-worth. You finally have something here that talks positive. Whenever you guys find something online that talks positive, share it, because that forces the algorithm to share it with more people. And it's time we flood the airwaves, flood the internet, flood the social media platforms with positivity, with light, instead of cursing the darkness, just increase the light. Joe, by the way, how can we get to your blog post to find that? It was called I Double Dog Dare You. I tried to post it in here. It wouldn't let me. Can you share with us how to get to there real quick?
Yeah, if you just go to mojo.studio, which is right underneath my name, it's a link tree. One of them is to my blog. And actually, I think it's the latest post, maybe 2 back now. I Double Dog Dare You. There's lots of good stuff there. So you're welcome to read it, to like it, to share it. And I want to go back to something Steve said real quick. And he said, if you want to be helped, be helpful, right? And this is a chance for you who are listening to be helpful to somebody else. We may not reach your friends, your neighbors, your family who are suffering with worthlessness, but you could share this with them. Maybe you could come up with these words, or we put it in a way that is very helpful to you. Well, share it with somebody. Pick one person that you think would benefit from this and share it with them. Again, that's not self-serving. That's for you a chance to be helpful. And when you help somebody else, you're actually helping yourself. Okay, I got to stop. Yes, thank you. Thank you all. On behalf of Stevo, Kristen, and myself, this is the Modern Day Alchemist, and we will see you again. Until then, be good to yourself, be good to others. Peace out.